The atmosphere in the business class cabin of Flight 447 to Miami was quietly elegant. The hum of the engines softly filtered through the soundproof walls, the aroma of espresso mingling with the warm scent of fine wood interiors. Alicia Bennett, a 44-year-old woman with softly curled black hair and a poised demeanor, was deeply engrossed in flipping through the pages of Forbes magazine. Her navy blazer, tailored to perfection, shimmered subtly under the cabin lights, while the diamond ring on her finger sparkled like the finishing touch of a portrait of success. She was lost in stories of billion-dollar deals, completely unaware of the figure who had just stopped beside her. Gregory Shaw, a broad-shouldered 56-year-old man with a flushed face under the LED lighting, wearing a wrinkled polo shirt, took a deep, irritated breath before speaking abruptly. "Excuse me, but I believe you're in my seat." His blunt words shattered the quiet, causing a few nearby passengers to glance up. The crumpled boarding pass in his hand was held up, clearly displaying seat number 3A. Alicia merely lifted her eyes, calm yet piercing, her lips remaining sealed. That silence, far from submissive, thickened the tension, as if each passing second added electricity to an unformed storm. Gregory seemed only to grow more confident in response. He stepped closer, using his imposing stature to exert pressure. "Look here, ma'am. I don't know where you got that outfit, but—" His voice echoed through the cabin, drawing a few raised eyebrows and curious glances. Alicia stayed put, delicately turning another page of her magazine, as if his words were beneath reaction. In seat 3B, Olivia Tran, a 29-year-old woman with neatly tied hair, paused her work on her laptop. She immediately sensed the abnormal tone and look in Gregory's demeanor, something beyond a simple seating dispute. Her phone was drawn, a gentle tap broadcasting the entire scene live. Gregory's words continued, now laced with subtle disdain. "This woman seems to think she belongs in business class." Each phrase was like a sharp blade, quiet, but enough to cause discomfort among listeners. The cabin announcement system crackled on, the flight attendant's voice informing passengers of a 15-minute delay due to a passenger seating issue, which made Gregory turn excitedly toward Alicia. "See? You're causing the whole flight to be delayed." Alicia tilted her head slightly, her gaze measuring and appraising rather than reacting impulsively. She understood well that sometimes the strongest response is not an immediate retort, but letting others reveal their true nature before everyone's eyes. And now, as the business class cabin grew increasingly crowded with passengers' attention, every move Gregory made was painting a picture he himself would soon have to confront. The sound of the service cart wheels rolling down the aisle softly drowned out the whispers of a few passengers, yet the atmosphere remained thick with tension. Karen Douglas, a 47-year-old gate agent with a practiced, forced smile, hurried into the cabin. Her eyes briefly scanned Gregory before resting on Alicia, as if she had already decided who was right before hearing any explanations. "Is there a seating issue here?" Karen's voice rang out, not harsh, but firm enough to stress the urgency. Gregory immediately pointed at Alicia. "She's in my seat. I've paid for this seat a long time ago. Please resolve this." Alicia said nothing. She opened her purse, pulled out her boarding pass, and handed it to Karen. The gate agent's eyes quickly flicked over the information on the card, showing a hint of confusion. "Ma'am, This is indeed seat 3A. Her words trailed off, not matching her initial assumption. Gregory frowned. Impossible. Let me see. But Alicia had already tucked the card away, her eyes unwavering, a resolve that left her opponent disoriented. Olivia in seat 3B kept her phone recording live. The camera caught the embossed words, Platinum Elite, on Alicia's boarding pass the moment she pulled it out. A brief moment, but enough for some online viewers to start questioning. Gregory, clinging to his belief, muttered, maybe she switched seats at the last minute, or someone gave it up. The electronic display showed the departure time delayed by 1 minute, now 14 minutes remaining. Alicia's phone vibrated, displaying an email subject. Meeting agenda, Miami deal. But she quickly locked the screen, ignoring Olivia's curious gaze. Sir, I need to see your boarding pass, Karen said. Gregory presented his ticket, his face triumphant. Seat 3A, booked months ago, he emphasized. Karen examined both passes, furrowing her brow. It seems there's a duplicate seat error in the system. That happens sometimes. Gregory cut in immediately. Then she needs to move. I was here first. From seat 3B, Olivia spoke up without lowering her phone. Sorry, but she's been sitting here for over 20 minutes, even before you boarded. Gregory flushed, his voice rising. I don't care how long she's been here. This is my seat. Above in the overhead bin, Alicia's leather bag lay neatly, the corner embossed with AB and a company logo Olivia hadn't noticed yet. Karen turned back to Alicia. Ma'am, we can offer you another first-class seat. Is that okay? Alicia spoke for the first time, her voice calm and controlled. I'm fine sitting here. The brief reply seemed to still the entire cabin. Gregory jumped up. This is ridiculous. Some people don't even know their place. Those words, not shouted, still left a bitter echo in the air, and Olivia knew for sure her live stream would gain even more viewers. Captain Harold Miller appeared from the cockpit, his face tense from being pulled out of an already tight schedule. He glanced at Karen, then quickly looked between Alicia and Gregory. The brief silence was enough for everyone in the cabin to sense one thing. He was leaning toward an assumption, even without full information. Ma'am, he addressed Alicia, his voice calm yet authoritative. I need you to move to your assigned seat or leave the plane. A fleeting smirk crossed Gregory's lips, as if he had achieved what he wanted. Alicia slowly stood up, each deliberate movement not an act of concession, but a preparation for something else. Olivia, still recording, quickly noted on her live stream. See? She's been silent all along, but now she's standing up. The atmosphere shifted as Rosa Martinez, the flight supervisor with over 15 years of experience, approached, clutching a folder tightly. What's the issue here? She asked briefly and attentively. The captain explained, this passenger refuses to leave her seat, even though the seat conflict has been confirmed by the system. Rosa observed Alicia, now holding a leather portfolio, and Gregory, who kept repeating his my seat mantra with increasing irritation. Ma'am, Rosa said, if you cannot provide proof of your seat assignment, we will have to ask you to disembark to resolve the matter. Eyes in the cabin turned toward Alicia, with some passengers in economy also leaning forward to observe. Olivia shook her head quietly and whispered into her phone. This is a crucial moment. Gregory interrupted again, this time openly. I need this seat, and frankly, I don't think she belongs here. His words fell heavily and clearly, causing a few passengers to frown. Karen tried to interject. "Sir, that's inappropriate." But Gregory immediately dismissed her. "What's inappropriate is the whole flight being delayed because of her." Alicia remained silent, only leaning forward to unlock her portfolio. Gregory, expecting some flimsy evidence, leaned forward slightly to look. Instead of a boarding pass or confirmation slip, Alicia pulled out a set of documents with an embossed title and a prominent signature. She handed them directly to Captain Harold Miller, her eyes fixed on him. After a few seconds of flipping through the papers, the captain's expression completely changed, confused, then realizing, and finally nearly stunned in shock. "Miss Bennet," he murmured softly. I had no idea." Karen curiously stepped closer, eyes wide, as she glanced at the page. "Oh my," she whispered. Gregory, still clueless, looked around and demanded, "What is this? What's going on?" Alicia calmly put the documents away, sat back down in seat 3A, crossing her legs as if undisturbed. "Just paperwork proving who I am," she said softly. The atmosphere in the cabin had completely shifted, as if everyone was waiting for her to reveal the answer to a mystery just uncovered. Gregory sat motionless, his eyes darting between Alicia and Captain Harold Miller, as if searching for a reasonable explanation. Rosa Martinez broke the silence. "Captain, is there a problem?" Harold swallowed hard before replying in a slightly trembling voice. "Ms. Bennet is the chairwoman of Summit Capital Group." The words struck like a silent explosion, causing Karen Douglas to pale, and a few passengers quietly gasped in surprise. Some whispered to each other, while others quickly searched on their phones. The name was prominently featured on financial news sites. The corporation that owns 67% of Skylink Airways, the very airline they were on. Olivia, still live, streaming, read aloud a viewer comment. "She's on Forbes' list of powerful people, with assets over $2 billion. Gregory frowned, seemingly unable to accept the truth. Alicia lifted her gaze, scanning the entire cabin before settling on him. "That means I'm your superior on this flight." Captain Harold Miller bowed his head and murmured, "If only I had known sooner," Alicia interrupted firmly, though not loudly. "If you had known, you would have treated me differently. And that's exactly the problem." The atmosphere in the cabin froze. Alicia continued, emphasizing each word. "Mr. Shaw, you tried to use attitude and pressure to force me out of my rightful seat. You made racially charged remarks in front of dozens of witnesses. And all of it was recorded." Olivia raised her phone, the screen showing over 4,700 viewers watching live. Gregory swallowed and stammered, I didn't mean to." "You meant exactly what you said," Alicia cut in. "And what you should be concerned about now isn't where you went wrong, but the consequences you must face." She turned to Captain Harold Miller. "Do you know Skylink's policy on passenger harassment?" The captain nodded weakly. "Zero tolerance. Permanent ban possible." Alicia didn't miss a beat. "Good. From now on, Mitt Shaw will no longer set foot on any Skylink flights. Additionally, I will add your name to the industry-wide no-fly list." Gregory stood abruptly, his voice nearly desperate. "You can't." "I can, and I will," Alicia replied, her gaze cold as steel. Karen Douglas could not escape Alicia's gaze either. "And you, Karen, You assumed I was the problem before verifying the facts, just because of my appearance. That's unconscious bias, and its effect made a legitimate customer feel unwelcome on her own airline. Karen bowed her head, voice choked. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Intentions don't matter. It's the impact we must address, Alicia said, closing the confrontation with a heavy silence that enveloped the entire cabin. Alicia sat upright, hands clasped together on her lap, her voice calm, yet carrying the weight of a strategic decision. This issue isn't just about a misbehaving passenger or a staff member's misconduct. It's a symptom of a system with flaws. Her eyes scanned every face in the room, from Harold Miller to Rosa Martinez, and then to Karen Douglas, who kept her head down. I'm not here to seek apologies. I want solutions. Gregory, though accused and banned from flying, remained silent, avoiding eye contact. Alicia continued. For months now, I've been taking unannounced flights, concealing my identity to observe how customers are treated. And this is the 4th time this year, on Skylink itself, that I've witnessed discriminatory behavior firsthand. She paused, letting the words sink into the heavy silence that enveloped the cabin. Rosa swallowed nervously and cautiously asked, What kind of changes do you want us to make? Alicia didn't hesitate. 30 days to rewrite the entire complaint handling and discrimination policy. 60 days for all customer-facing staff to complete unconscious bias training. 90 days to restructure management teams, ensuring diversity and fair representation. And a direct reporting system to the board of directors, bypassing intermediate management layers. Harold Miller took a deep breath, trying to conceal his anxiety. Alicia looked directly at him. Today's incident shows a default reaction of believing the louder white customers over the silent customers of color. That reflex must be fundamentally changed. Olivia, still holding her phone, whispered into the microphone. She's not just talking about fairness. She's rebuilding an entire system. Karen murmured, I understand. Alicia nodded gently, not to forgive, but to acknowledge the first step of awareness. She turned to Rosa. I want a mobile app that allows passengers to report any discriminatory behavior directly, with information sent straight to me or the board. No filtering, no delay. Rosa nodded firmly, her eyes shining with urgency. Alicia leaned back in her chair, her voice softening but still firm. We have the opportunity to make Skylink the leading airline for equality. But that opportunity only exists if everyone understands that from today on, every action leaves a trace, and every mistake has consequences. In the quiet space, the hum of the engines provided a deep, steady background beat, reminding everyone that this flight would continue. But the way the airline operates would never return to how it was before. Harold Miller glanced at his watch, as if calculating how much longer before they could take off. But Alicia cut through that thought with an announcement that made the entire crew freeze. I have contacted the Department of Transportation's Office of Civil Rights. They are monitoring this situation. A wave of murmurs spread throughout the cabin. Rosa Martinez leaned toward Harold and quietly asked, You mean an official investigation? Alicia nodded slightly, her eyes locked onto the captain's gaze. And I want it to start immediately. Alicia's phone rang, displaying a call from David Chen, a DOT representative. She switched the call to speakerphone, and the male voice on the other end came through clearly. We want to interview all involved staff and review the new policies before implementation. Alicia responded without hesitation. I will be in Miami tomorrow, ready for the session. And the 3 people are here: Captain Miller, Supervisor Martinez, Gate Agent Douglas, will be fully present. A long silence followed. Karen Douglas pressed her lips together, while Harold Miller clasped his hands lightly. Alicia leaned back and placed the phone down. Don't see this as a punishment. See it as an opportunity to make things right. She pulled out a notebook, flipping through notes quickly. Mr. Miller, starting today, you will work directly with Skylink's new Diversity and Inclusion Director. Ms. Martinez, I want the implementation plan for the discrimination reporting app within 1 week. And Ms. Douglas, you will attend advanced training on customer service and unconscious bias. Gregory Shaw, sitting in the back where he had just been relocated, was close enough to hear everything. He leaned back in his seat, eyes vacant, as if he were the last person to realize he no longer controlled anything. Alicia didn't turn around, but directed her voice toward him. You will be permanently banned from flying on the entire Skylink system and placed on the industry-wide no-fly shared list. And let me remind you, this is not only because of today's behavior, but because this system cannot allow people like you to repeat such actions against anyone else. Olivia whispered into her phone, her audience surpassing 20,000 viewers. We just witnessed a CEO handling a crisis right on her own plane. Alicia closed her notebook, put it away, and finished with a simple sentence that silenced the entire cabin. In 30 days, I want to see a different Skylink. Stronger, fairer, and more deserving. 6 months later, the morning sunlight streamed through the large windows of Skylink's Miami headquarters, casting a warm glow over the top-floor conference room. Alicia Bennett stood by the window, flipping through the latest quarterly reports. The numbers unfolded like a meticulously composed symphony. Discrimination complaints down by 89%. Customer satisfaction scores up by 34%. And stock prices reaching an unprecedented record high. Sarah Kim, the newly appointed Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion, smiled as she reported, "The dignity in flight policy has exceeded all expectations. In the past 6 months, we have had no incidents of discrimination spreading online." Alicia nodded quietly, turning to the training completion statistics. What's the unconscious bias training participation rate? 100%, Sarah replied, and the 3 employees who failed were terminated. On the large screen, the download count for the discrimination reporting app had surpassed 340,000, accompanied by positive customer feedback. Monthly diversity audits were conducted by an independent body, and the zero-tolerance policy was strictly enforced. Alicia paused at another section. Industry impact? Sarah raised her eyebrows proudly. 4 major airlines, United, Delta, American, Southwest, have adopted our policy model and publicly credited Skylink. Alicia's phone buzzed with a new notification. Skylink was named the most inclusive airline by the Civil Rights Alliance. She smiled, realizing this story had become a Harvard case study titled Leadership in Crisis, the Bennett Method. Olivia Tran, who had been in seat 3B that day, was now a social justice journalist with 2.3 million TikTok followers and a consultant for several corporations. Her documentary, Seat 3A, had just premiered at Sundance to great acclaim. The influence continues to spread, Sarah noted. These changes are now cited as the new standard. Alicia turned back to the window, looking down at the bustling airport where Skylink planes took off and landed continuously. Her monthly spot check flights were ongoing, but now negative experiences had become rare. The system she once saw full of flaws was now operating as a true protector of passengers. The office door gently swung open, and Alicia's assistant stepped in quietly, saying, "Someone is here to see you," unannounced. As the person crossed the threshold, Alicia immediately recognized him. Gregory Shaw. 6 months had clearly left its mark. His hair was thinner, his steps slower, and the confident gaze he once wielded was now gone. "Mr. Shaw," Alicia nodded subtly, pointing to the chair opposite her. "I didn't expect to see you again." Gregory sat down, fingers intertwined tightly, as if to steady them from the trembling. "I want to apologize this time, properly." He looked up, eyes no longer avoiding hers. "I've spent the past 6 months reflecting on what I did that day, on the assumptions I carried, and the invisible power I thought I held." Alicia remained silent, her steady gaze compelling him to continue. "I was wrong, completely wrong, and I want to make it right." He pulled a neat typed letter from his briefcase enclosed in an envelope. "This is my formal apology." "I also want to contribute $50,000 to Skylink's Diversity Scholarship Fund." Alicia skimmed the letter, her eyes softening slightly as she saw the straightforward, concrete words. But she lifted her head, voice still firm. "Words and money are a start, but not enough. What are you doing to change the system that enabled your behavior?" Gregory took a deep breath. "I've partnered with NAACP to develop unconscious bias training programs. I've spoken at 3 corporate seminars, sharing my story as a cautionary example. And next month, I'll testify before Congress at the House Transportation Committee hearing on discrimination in the airline industry." Alicia tilted her head, the corner of her mouth lifting into a faint smile. "Sounds like a real beginning." When Gregory left, the room fell silent once again. Alicia turned back to the reports on her desk, but there was a subtle shift in her eyes, a quiet recognition, not full forgiveness, but an acknowledgement that sometimes real change begins with the deepest fall of a person. 2 years after the incident at Seat 3A, Alicia Bennett's story has far surpassed the confines of a single flight. The video capturing her calm confrontation with Gregory Shaw has amassed over 47 million views across platforms, becoming a teaching tool in business schools, cited in congressional hearings, and even influencing amendments to federal anti-discrimination laws. Skylink Airlines is now recognized as the gold standard for inclusive corporate culture, and the Bennett Protocol, anonymous inspections personally conducted by leadership, has been adopted by numerous major corporations, both within and beyond the airline industry. The impact goes beyond policy. Olivia Tran's documentary, Seat 3A, which tells the story from the perspective of witnesses and the online community, won an Emmy. Gregory Shaw, with his redemption journey, became the subject of a best-selling book about confronting and overcoming personal privilege. Even Karen Douglas, who once unconsciously displayed bias in that brief moment, now serves as a trainer on unconscious bias awareness for new employees, turning her mistake into a cautionary lesson. But what Alicia takes greatest pride in is not the awards or media coverage, but the letters she receives from all over. Passengers of color sharing how they feel more respected when flying, Young managers saying her story gave them courage to speak up, and white allies admitting they've learned how to use their privilege to protect others. For Alicia, these are proof that a courageous moment, even one without drama or noise, can ignite lasting change. In a later TED Talk, she shared a quote that became widely referenced. "Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all." Let others reveal their true nature, record everything, and then use your voice strategically. This power of silence method demonstrates that sustainable change does not come from outbursts of anger, but from patience and systemic vision. Alicia's story is now regarded as a guide for anyone seeking to turn a personal injustice into a collective catalyst for reform. The auditorium was packed, warm lights bathing the stage where Alicia Bennett stood, microphone in hand, her gaze sweeping over hundreds of audience members. Her voice was calm and steady, needing no emphasis to command authority. "My story isn't about owning an airline or winning an argument. It's about how any one of us can stand up or sit quietly and change the outcome." She paused, letting a moment of silence pass before continuing. "Remember, injustice doesn't always come in blatant acts. It can be the assumption that one person is more credible than another, simply based on appearance. It can be the silence of bystanders. But it's from that very silence, if used wisely, that we can gather evidence to break the cycle." Behind her, a large screen played moments from the seat 3A incident. Alicia sitting calmly, Gregory losing control, the crew's confused glances, and finally the moment she revealed her identity. The room fell utterly silent, as if everyone was putting themselves in the characters' places. "The question I want you to take with you," Alicia said, her voice lowering, "is this. When you witness injustice, whether at work, in your community, or on a flight, what will you do? Will you look away? Or will you stand up, or at least raise your phone?" She smiled gently, her eyes meeting groups in the crowd. "My story is just one among millions untold. And I believe out there are many Maya Washingtons, many Olivia Trans, people who refuse to accept the unacceptable. The question is, are you ready to be one of them?" A thunderous applause filled the auditorium, not just for the speech, but for a message that touched something deeper, that change doesn't begin somewhere far away, but in the moment each person chooses to act. As the clapping echoed, Alicia stepped back, leaving the screen to display the words, "In a world full of Gregory Shaws, we need more Alicia Bennetts." Yeah. From the perspective of someone who has studied leadership and crisis management, Alicia Bennett's story demonstrates that true power doesn't lie in domination, but in the ability to remain calm, observe, and then take strategic action to transform an entire system. It is a vivid example that a single personal moment can create a ripple effect, reshape organizational culture, and inspire far beyond the limits of one industry. If you believe that every action, no matter how small, can contribute to fighting injustice, please hit like and subscribe to continue joining us on Stories with the Power to Change. And before you leave this video, leave a comment with just 2 words, equal rights, so this message can spread even stronger.